The views expressed and opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Z-Talk Radio, its affiliates, or sponsors.
Good evening and welcome to Canadian X Talk Radio. It's Saturday night, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. My name's Glen Ferguson, your host. We'll be joined a little bit later by my wife and co-host, Janessa Ferguson. Now, we're doing something a little bit different this week. I've been covering the 80s and 70s music for the last month, but we're back to chat. We have two guests tonight. Our first guest will be Priscilla Wolfe from APTN's new paranormal reality show, The Other Side. And the second half will be covered by Chris Rutkowski, ufologist and author. Okay, our first guest tonight is Priscilla Wolfe from APTN's new paranormal reality show, The Other Side. How are you doing tonight, Priscilla?
I'm great.
So how's the show going?
You know what? It only aired one episode, and so far the reviews are great.
Good.
We're happy.
How does that work out with the First Nations community as far as being received?
Well, the majority of the people that I spoke to are First Nations, and that's where my reviews came from. I didn't get to speak to anyone else. I was up in La Ronge, which was hosted by our elder, and was surrounded by First Nations people there. And those were the reviews that I heard.
So what is the show about, for those who are listening in who haven't actually had a chance to see the show yet?
Okay, the show is about four of us hosts go out and investigate. I researched the area first, and we investigate. It's either, it could be a location, a person's house, a business, and what we do is we each all have our own gifts. I don't have any kind of, the same kind of gifts that the guys have. Yeah. But I come from a background that's Catholic and spiritual, as well as I have a background as a journalist, and that's where that's my role, researcher, as well as kind of like an Aboriginal liaison.
Yeah.
And what we do is we have a First Nation spin on it, and that's what makes us different than other shows that are out there that investigate paranormal locations.
So how did you guys get together? Were you actually a group beforehand, or were you pulled together as part of a TV show?
Exactly. We were pulled together because of the TV show, and it just all came together perfectly. Like, I think what happened was when the show was first pitched, they knew that they wanted Jeff because the production company had actually worked with him before.
Yeah.
And they thought he was the ideal person. And from there, that we all just kind of came on board for different reasons, and it just worked out great.
Great. So how did you get involved with the paranormal research angle?
Myself, I got involved by the show. It's not something that I've ever done before, and I've never even watched any of the paranormal shows that are out there. Okay, it's completely different for me.
Okay, you're from the Mr. Wass's band, I believe, if I'm incorrect.
Mr. Wass's First Nation, and it's located in Saskatchewan.
How does that compare with your connection with the Catholic Church?
Well, I mean, we do have a Catholic Church on our First Nation, and I grew up going to the church there. And we also attended church in the city. I grew up in the city, and it's close to our reserve. There's a lot of people that are Catholic that are First Nation.
I'm looking back at some of the history here because I'm a researcher myself with the paranormal group. And how does that correlate with the old residential schools as opposed to a boarding school?
Yeah, so a lot of the First Nations people that are Catholic now, it is a result of residential schools. and that's probably how my family became Catholic, is just because different members went to the residential schools, and like my dad himself went to the residential school, and he's a very strong Catholic, and that's how he raised us. But my mom is also, she's Catholic, but she's more stronger traditionally, spiritually. So I have that combination.
Because I know residential schools way back in this day, they actually removed children from their homes by force with the RCMP's help to put them into schools to study the Catholic faith.
Yes, that's true. It's a very long history, and it's also a very dark history.
I spent a lot of time working with First Nations people myself on a lot of investigations, both shamans with the Métis and Haida community. The integration itself works out well for me because there's a lot of grounds where we go which are either Salish native burial grounds, and the practices and performances that my shamans do elevates our investigations. Does that work well for you as well with TV?
Do you find that it elevates your investigations?
It enhances it a bit. It adds the spirituality angle to it, which is a little bit different from the normal Anglo-Saxon approach to investigating.
Well, the problem with that is I don't know, because I've never done an investigation before except for the show. But I do know that just the four of us together when we're in a group, a lot of stuff do happen. Like I actually, when I signed up, I was kind of thinking, okay, well, how do we know anything's even going to happen when we go out and investigate? But for some reason, put the four of us together and something always happens. I can't compare it to any other investigations because I've never investigated with another group before.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about the Mr. Wes's band.
It is located kind of central northern Saskatchewan, and my dad actually works there. So I do have a strong connection to my community, and both my parents are from Mr. Wes's First Nation, and it's a Cree community.
Okay, one of the guys I work with is actually Cree as well.
Nice.
From the area. He's a shaman. His name's Eagle Child. He's a native flutist and spiritual healer. Great guy. Very down to earth. He actually makes silver jewelry, and I actually have his ring on my ring finger right now. Been married 23 years. So it's actually a buffalo.
Oh, nice. And buffaloes are very beautiful.
And on the back of the ring, it's an eagle feather.
That's nice. It sounds very pretty.
It is very pretty.
You're lucky to have it.
So what's it like to get on with the team members? Now, you guys were just pulled together for one show. How does it work out for dynamics? And you say it's all working out really well.
Well, I'll tell you. I find that I get along with them amazingly. And, you know, we on set and on location, we've all had our disagreements, but we really built a strong team. There's a lot of communication, even though we're not in production right now.
Yeah.
And I do talk to them on a regular basis. I did not get to see Tom until this week, but I did talk to him a few times. But he's so far away, it's hard to see him. But the guys, I mean, we keep in contact all the time. And I just think, you know, with something like this, what we did is it bonded us. And I'm pretty sure that we'll keep in contact for years. Lifelong friends.
So what's the schedule like for upcoming shows? Is there something beyond the pilot to go on to do other investigations?
Well, we've already completed 13 episodes. So the whole season is completed. And we hope to go into production pretty soon to start the second season. And the problem with the first season is nobody knew who we were. So when I was researching locations, it was really hard to get our foot in the door for a lot of places. Yeah. But now that we're on air and people kind of know who we are, it's we've got a lot of choices. I mean, we haven't started the second season yet, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be so many choices and we're going to have so many locations to choose from. But I think that's really exciting.
So you guys going nationwide or sticking to the prairies?
Well, I guess it depends on where the best stories are. I think for now we're going to be in the prairies, but I mean, we do want to expand and we do want We have been in touch with people in BC and also on the East Coast and in Northern Canada. So, we're hoping to get as many places as possible. I guess it just depends on where the stories are.
Yeah, we have a lot of locations here on the West Coast, which would be probably interesting for you guys to attend. There's Kamloops Residential School has a long history of paranormal activity. I'm not sure if you're aware of that one yet.
That's something that I really wanted to pitch to the producers. I really do think it would be interesting to find a residential school that's still standing.
Yeah.
And here in Saskatchewan, we couldn't find anything that's standing.
Well, with the Kamloops Residential School, it's still on First Nations grounds. So speaking to First Nations elders from out here would be probably your first step to get into that location. But then again, there's also the traveling aspect of getting you guys out here with your team and all your equipment, production crew, etc., etc. It comes down to price.
Yes, but I would love to go to BC. Beautiful over there.
So what is your tie-in with journalism and switching to reality TV? Well, was that a tough transition?
It was, but the thing is, when I've been a journalist for a while. I started out as a reporter and started anchoring, hosting, and I just have this, I guess, a drive and a love for hosting shows and segments, and it just seemed like a really good fit because of the title itself. One of the hosts, right?
Yeah.
And it was, I decided to take a little break from actual hardcore news, and this just happened, and I think it was a really good change. I like it.
Okay, your first episode was in Kipling, right?
Yes, back of our church.
Okay, that was named after Rudyard Kipling, the author of Jungle Book.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, he grew up in India and spent most of his life, well, actually a long life in England. But it was kind of interesting that the correlation there between an English author and a Saskatchewan town, which was built, well, actually was turned into a town, I think it was 1909. It's got a population of about 1,100 people, I believe.
And a very large Hungarian community in that area, too.
Okay, you still there?
A Hungarian? There's a lot of Hungarian people in that area. A lot of them settled near Kipling, in Kipling.
Yeah, I noticed it's one of those places you could drive by and think it's a small little community, but when you actually get into Kipling itself, it's quite large.
That's true, yes. I did get to go and spend some time with Adele, who was on our first episode, and she said a lot of people did move away, but I mean, a lot of people still go back, and, I don't think it's going to disappear. I think it will always be there.
Okay, there was one part in the episode. I actually took my time out and watched it on Wednesday night, and then watched it again on APTN's website because they had the show up there. You found a grave with two Elizabeths on it with two different dates. What was the outcome of that? Because it didn't really tell you a lot on the episode as far as what was happening with two names on one gravestone with two different dates.
Well, they were relatives, and it was a name that was kept in the family, and so they were like mother and daughter, and it's just a very common name in that area.
Yeah, Hungarians would call it Ezrabet.
Yes.
But most First Nations would call it Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
So, technology versus spirituality. This is something I need to ask you. Like, obviously, you're dealing with new equipment. You've got Jeff on board, who's a technology freak.
No, that would be Bill.
Oh,
Bill's
Bill.
the tech guy, yes.
Oh, okay. And what was that? I was assuming it was Jeff. That's right, Bill.
Jeff is the intuitive, and Bill is the tech guy. So he's got all the gadgets.
Oh, okay. So how's that like working with him?
It was actually pretty good. It was once in a while they'd send us in by ourselves, myself and Bill, and they always have a little gadget, and he tried to teach me how to use it, and sometimes I'd figure it out, sometimes I wouldn't, but there's so many different gadgets. The spirit box, I find is kind of scary when they start using it, because you can actually ask questions and you hear this like a radio, and then you hear words come out, and then once in a while too, like the first time we used it, it was Bill and Jeff and I, the three of us sitting there, and we were talking to some spirits, and we had already did some of the research about the area, so we kind of knew the names of the spirits, and they gave us their names, and then they actually repeated all of our names, and I thought that was my first experience using the gadgets, and my first experience using the spirit box. I found it very scary. It's kind of scary when you have something go, hi Priscilla. It's really very scary.
Yeah, we've used the spirit box a few times. Sangene is another version of the spirit box. It basically scans through FM, AM channels and picks up on words. And if you ask a question, sometimes you will get responses which are kind of interesting, where they'll come back with an immediate response. But it's kind of hit and miss sometimes on whether it's accurate or not. Like being a son of a medium, I kind of look towards that kind of thing. But on the same side, I like to have a scientific approach to most of our investigations, and I find it kind of I kind of believe it in some ways. In other ways, I'm not quite sure.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons that Bill got into using the gadgets, is he wants to be able to prove to other people that spirits exist, and he thinks that, you know, by using the gadgets, people will rely on that information to prove it. But that's how he got into that. He uses lots of different gadgets.
I also see you guys use the REM pod. Great piece of equipment. Anything that interferes with that electromagnetic field actually triggers the device, which is kind of interesting. I noticed that, I think it was it Bill? Yeah, it was Bill that walked away from it, and the device triggered. That does happen sometimes. It also, if you're using two-way radios, that will affect the REM pod as well.
Yeah, so when we were actually, like at first, when we first started investigations, we did have radios to keep in touch with each other.
Yeah.
And then we realized, you know, like we can't keep them on because it will interfere with the equipment. So we did have to stop using them, as well as we had to make sure everybody's cell phones were off, because that could also interfere. Yeah,
every time you get a text message, it will trigger either your REM pod or your EMF devices, especially the K2 and the Mail 8704, which are fallible with anything to do with incoming messages or texts.
Yes, that's why we have all the cell phones off.
It's a good thing.
But the equipment itself, when we did actually, there's a lot of times when we'd ask questions and the timing was so perfect. Like there's no way that, you know, I mean, we knew that nobody had their cell phones on. We didn't have the two-way radios on. So it just, you know, it was pretty amazing that that they'd go off exactly when we'd ask questions.
Okay, my wife is just on me right now. She just walked in the door. She's my co-host, but she was a little bit busy earlier. Would you like to say hi?
Walking the dog. Hi, Priscilla.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you, my dear. Yeah, we have such lovely weather right now. We're kind of it's about 12 degrees out here, sunny. So I was out walking the dog.
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's only 2 here, but we're really lucky because it's usually minus 20.
So where do you actually live?
I live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Oh, that's beautiful up there.
It is when it's not winter.
Oh, I know. I actually lived a while in Moose Jaw.
Okay, yes. Yeah, where the base is.
Yeah, you just figured it out. That's where I lived.
Nice. I liked it there.
Yeah, and you just turn left at the Bison Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just kind of walked into the conversation, so what are we up to here?
We've pretty much covered a lot of stuff, but I want to know about that bang behind Bill in the church. His reaction was kind of interesting. Pretty much the same reaction I would have too, was being that loud. And it's nice that you guys don't hide your evidence with creepy music like other reality TV shows.
Yes. We did have a sound guy with us all the time, so he was able to pick up a lot of the sounds. But, there are in some cases where we all, as a group, would hear something, and yet it didn't make it to air, and it wasn't picked up from the mic because, the mic was with us, and the sound came from another area.
Yeah.
So yeah, when he reacted to that big bang, I mean, it was definitely. I mean, for someone who has so much experience on these investigations, it's interesting to see him react like that because, you would think he'd be used to stuff like that. But I guess from what I understand, not all investigations have activity and noises and things that go bump in the night.
It's actually very rare. Like, we've done a lot of investigations over the years, and it's really rare to actually get any evidence at all. Most of our evidence comes through on audio as opposed to visual or camera recorded stuff.
I find that interesting because, like I said, I've never done these kind of investigations before. I didn't even have any interest in watching any shows that were similar. And the fact that we did all these investigations, something happened on every single one of them. And I think it was maybe just the dynamic of the group, like all four of us together. Bill and Jeff almost seem to be attracting all the activity. I don't know what that is, but like I have never I didn't expect a lot of the activity to happen, and I was really surprised because it happened at every location.
Yes.
Well, that's is Bill so sensitive, isn't it? Is Bill sensitive?
It would be, well, you know what, he has his own he does have that ability a little bit, but he relies on the equipment. It's Jeff who has
because sometimes what we found is then it's Jeff, they're a conduit for stuff to kind of, if somebody is coming in and they can be heard, and a lot of times when we have actually a sensitive with us, a very strong sensitive, we get a little more evidence outright, I guess is a word.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, now like you telling me that, and then I did see that, and yeah, they do. Both of them attract a lot of activity.
Well, it's a combination where the spirit says, well, oh, wow, he can hear me, he can see me, now we're going to go talk to him. And the activity does escalate with that. Even though the guys who are not sensitive are more based on a technology aspect of investigating, tend not to be touched or messed around with as much as the sensitives.
Right. Well, I find all three of the guys are gifted. That's how I describe them. And I always say, I'm the one that isn't gifted. And I think the three of them together, they do attract a lot of activity.
Yeah,
I think they all have gifts.
Yeah, we're the kind of same way. We've brought out some very, very good sensitives with us, and we did a park here. It's called Crescent Park, and it has a very varied history, especially with the First Nations people. And the first time we went out, we got some interesting stuff, but the second time we brought out our friend Derek White Sky Cloud, and he performed a ceremony before we started, and it was so active after that. It was just unbelievable. We had our REM pod going off like crazy there for about a half an hour, and none of us were really around it.
It sounds like there was a lot of activity that night for you guys.
Yeah, it was interesting, this because he's a psychic medium as well, and a shaman, and oh my goodness, boy, they liked it. But remember, you got that EVP too. That when you said you were an ex-British soldier, and
yeah, well, that was probably a bad move on my part. But because the Salish people were kind of hounded by the British government, they tended to bury their dead in trees, hang them from trees, and kind of a cot type thing, as opposed to ceremonial burning. So we hung around the trees a lot, and Derek picked up on the idea that maybe there's an interaction between a British soldier and First Nations people that were on that land. And I said, well, I'm an ex-British Army officer. And the response I got was quite overwhelming. I almost passed out, and I spent a couple of moments on the trip back from the location actually opening the door and throwing up, which was not unusual, but it's definitely different.
I did hear stories, the guys told me stories where that can happen. Physically, people can get ill.
Yeah, it's kind of an overwhelming presence. You feel nauseous, and both me and another guy from the team had the same effect, so it was kind of a mutual feeling.
Okay. That happened on one of the locations where I had to leave the area. I didn't physically get sick, but I felt just this really negative energy, and I just needed to get out of the building. But I do kind of understand that, but
Yeah.
and that it did happen to a couple crew members as well.
Yeah, that's not unusual. The old fallacy is, they're how do you say AH in real life? They're AH in spirit life a lot of times. So, if they have a lot of negative energy around them in the mortal world, they take that, and if they haven't crossed over, it will definitely affect it'll definitely carry on in their spirit world, and it can affect you. I mean, I had that happen another place where it went through you, and then I got a migraine. Oh man, was I ill? And I said, okay, I'm done.
Well, another thing that I noticed too from our investigations is you were talking about their energy that they have when they're alive and that they have after they pass.
Yeah.
They also have their sense of humor, and I found that really interesting. I thought on a few occasions, you don't see everything on camera because we only have half an hour to tell the story, but there's a lot of times we had so much fun just laughing because you're talking and communicating with spirits, and you do pick up their personality, you pick up their sense of humor, and sometimes they're joking around with you. Sometimes they do get angry too.
Yeah, I've noticed that even kids will play games with us at some locations we've been at. We'll mess around with the ball, or they'll play hide and seek, and they'll pop out of doorways and pop back in again. Before you can even get the camera up, they're gone. And it's, oh man, couldn't you just hold for 1 second? You hear the giggle in the background. It's like, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I heard of investigations, not that we did ourselves, but other investigations where they had proof, and some, the proof disappeared.
Yeah, you can actually record stuff and say, well, I got it on camera, and then when you go back or listening to a recording later on, magically it's no longer there. Even though we heard it the first time we listened to the recording, but when we try to either put it through a digital recorder when we're editing later on, the sound of the voices disappeared.
Wow. Well, that reminds me of one investigation we did at the WDM.
Yeah.
The four of us, we basically ventured out by ourselves without any camera crew, and I ended up having to go grab the camera crew to come and find us and follow us because so much activity was happening when we were by ourselves without the cameras.
Yeah.
And they did get some of it on camera, but the thing is, what we didn't get, you can't see it, but we all saw it and we could hear it, was, we're in a museum where artifacts are. Nobody could get near it. And there was stuff that were just, banging in the back of a truck. And I think maybe we picked up a little bit of the audio on camera, but with all of our eyes, we can see it moving up and down really hard and fast as well as loud. But Unfortunately, when it got into the edit suite, they couldn't see all of that.
Glen's had that happen on more than one occasion where he's forgotten to take the camera out with him, and it's kind of funny because he was at a Hat Creek Ranch, which is a National Historic Site, and him and Troy went out afterwards, and he lifted up the hatch, and these kids used to sit underneath the bar and get handed.
That was down in the crawl space.
It was down in the crawl space, and it was one of the reported areas of where tool workmen had lost their tool kits and stuff like that. And he lifted up the hatch, and this hand came out at him.
And I dropped the hatch.
He dropped the hatch, mind.
We didn't have a camera with us. I'm like, you kidding me? I just saw that, and I didn't have a camera with me, which is kind of part of the course.
Yeah, the stuff that happens off camera, and then that's also when a lot of times the hilarics happen too. When you're being stupid at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Actually, the dead don't scare me as much as the living. Like, I've been terrified more by my fellow investigators.
His wife.
By accident. Not just the prank side, but you'll walk by a room and all of a sudden you'll catch something in the corner of your eye, and you'll look over and there's some guy sitting in a chair, and obviously the shock value hits you immediately. And you kind of yell, and then you realize it's one of your guys, one of your guys sitting there by himself. Are you kidding me?
Well, where we were investigating a museum, not the WDM, another one at one point, and they had a rope that was blocking a closet from people walking in, and I didn't realize the rope was there.
Yeah.
I could feel it, and it's pitch black. Of course, that scared me.
Well, people don't see that. They don't realize we walk around in total darkness.
Exactly.
What we capture on cameras is infrared or full spectrum. So you can see with the camera, you can use your camera as a guide occasionally, but if you spend too much time staring at the camera, you miss what's going on to the left and the right of you. So I use my camera as my third eye, and also to make sure I don't trip over any stuff, which is normal for us. Some of our guys have walked into walls, tripped over tables, chairs, that kind of stuff.
Well, how about the keg where it's so low you banged your head, you had to have a hard hat?
Yeah, well, that's one of those things.
Well, the interesting thing about our group is nobody did trip, nobody did fall, but I'm actually scared of the dark, and we spent the majority of our time in the dark, and that was scary.
It's actually how amazing how quickly you become attuned to the darkness, especially if you're not staring at your camera. Your eyes focus, you become acclimatized to the darkness, and you pick up a lot more things in the shadow and light that you would normally catch if the lights were on. People ask me all the time, well, why do you investigate in the dark? It's not always the case. A lot of our investigations are being done during the day, and we've caught just as much during the day as we have at night. It's just that our senses become a little bit more finely tuned in the darkness.
That makes sense. I didn't actually ask why we had to do everything in the dark, or the majority of the investigations in the dark.
Well, it's also a quieter time too. In the dark, everybody's asleep, so that's a good time if you're in a very, very old building and suddenly you hear this.
People can't hear that on the radio.
Oh well, you hear the
footsteps, the tapping.
Or the footsteps, or I think we were in the Colmont and there was this noise and we're hearing these little, rustles, and we're kind of going, what in the heck? We're in the condemned building on the third floor in the middle of the night, and what is this noise? Ends up being a raccoon or a mice, or...
That was a raccoon.
That was a raccoon, that one. And
right, that's something you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
The wildlife, too.
Yeah, you don't realize that the wildlife can scare the absolute living crap out of you.
Oh, yeah. Well, the back of our church location, there were pigeons up in the chapel there, and even that sound itself, the way it sounded, it kind of sounded like a female voice almost. So it was good to know that there were pigeons.
Yeah, well, you expected. I wasn't expecting that raccoon. I remember at Hat Creek, you weren't expecting those mice either, were you?
No, there was a room off. This was early in the morning that we'd finished our investigation. Me and one of my new investigators at the time went back and thought, we'll take a quick look around. We actually got more in the morning, but then again, we weren't carrying any equipment around with us, which was kind of par for the course, that you missed that kind of stuff. But we heard some shuffling off in a room to our right when we went into the coach house. And we're both looking at each other, do we open the door and see what's behind there? And we're like, yeah, let's go open the door. And what we thought was somebody walking or thumping around in the room, moving stuff, was actually a rat eating a bag of potatoes. So it's one of those things where you have to go in and check. That would scare the living daylights out of anyone. Even kind of shocked us for a bit. We're like, oh, wow, someone's moving around back there. And
it can be dangerous, too. If you...
It can be.
Come across a rat yourself face to face.
Like, if I had investigators when I first started doing this many years ago that used to run when they had activity occur, obviously in the wrong direction. Like, if you're going to capture any evidence, you're going to run towards the evidence, not away from it.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, one of my guys ran away and ran into a doorway, and then through the doorway, and unfortunately they removed the flooring from that room, and it was 2 floors up, so he ended up falling 2 floors and breaking both his legs. So
that's dangerous.
That's one of those things where I preach to my guys, like, there's no running. Like, if you get scared, you get freaked out, say, thank you very much, turn around and walk out calmly. I will not allow any of my guys to run whatsoever.
Yeah, that makes sense. It can be dangerous, running in the dark, regardless.
Yeah, exactly. So what other locations do you have coming up, or is that kind of confidential?
No, I can give you some locations. Well, it's no secret that we were at the WDM, the Western Development Museum here in Saskatchewan,
Yeah.
in Saskatoon, and it's known to have a lot of activity. It's also a place where a lot of investigators go on a regular basis, I guess. Maybe they must have at least one investigative team there a year.
Yeah.
And we went there twice. And viewers will have to tune in to see why we went back.
Yeah.
Because we were only there, supposed to be there for one episode, but we ended up having to go back. And that's another location besides Beckamore.
Yeah.
Also, Duck Lake, Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
It has a very, very rich history, and that's one of our investigative places. It's very interesting there. Lots and lots of activity there as well.
Oh, cool.
There's a few other places that we got to visit, just in Saskatoon as well as North Battleford.
That's kind of cool because seeing some of these places in Saskatchewan is not as well known as, say, people don't realize, they think it's all flat up there and everything, and it's not. It's quite a nice place, and to have that history, and it's got quite a rich history in Saskatoon and up in North Battleford and all that area.
Yes, a lot. Like we did kind of concentrate a lot on Saskatchewan this past season. I really do think we will be heading to Manitoba and possibly BC. And we've been pitched a lot of stories that are in northern Saskatchewan as well. And I really like to go up there. Kind of scares me more for some reason because you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, there's not a lot up there past North Battleford, is there?
Well, we were in La Ronge on Wednesday. I went to go visit our spiritual guide up there, Tom Charles. I got to meet a lot of the community members, and one of the locations that was pitched to us has a lot of activity, and I'd really like us to go up there. It would be really interesting. But that's in La Ronge, and honestly, there's really nothing else beyond La Ronge except a lot of trees.
A lot of trees and a lot of lakes.
Yes, lots of lakes, lots of wildlife.
Yeah. But it would be interesting, especially if it's a very active location. It's obviously very close to the First Nations hearts. And if they're asking you to head up there, I mean, that would be I would think that'd be an honor, really.
I agree. I do hope that we go up there. And I was so happy that I was able to go and join Tom in his community this past week for the premiere. It was really good. It was great to be like in a grassroots environment for the premiere.
Yeah, it would have been. Because it would have been a celebration as well, because it's just, I don't know how to put it, I'm trying to think the words to form in my mouth here, but, it would have been, they would have celebrated it.
Yes. Well, it was an honor to be invited. Tom invited me himself, and just to be there with other Aboriginal people, I really enjoyed it.
Tell me a little bit about Tom. I didn't really get to see a lot of him in the first episode.
Yeah, well, Tom usually would come in towards the end of the investigation. Kind of, on occasion, he would come in and do a ceremony to start things off, and then he'd have to leave for a bit, and then he'd come back. Basically, he would come and help piece it together and help cleanse the location. And he comes from a very spiritual background, and he's also very gifted. And working with him was an honor because, one of the things that people don't know about him is he helps people find missing people in his community a lot. And it's really interesting to hear some of his stories. You can tell just from his stories alone that he's very gifted.
Well, is he a shaman as well?
We wouldn't use that word, and I honestly wouldn't call him that, but he's our guide.
A spiritual guide.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he speaks to a lot of elders that he respects very well, and they help guide him so that he can help guide us.
That makes sense. I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge in your elders, and you're a fool not to take the advice that they give you, basically.
Right. So basically he comes in and he helps us just wrap it up.
And he cleanses? Do you smudge and does he
Yes.
do swimmer? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And that's something that I grew up doing as well. So regardless if Tom's there or not, it's something that I will do as well. Is smudge.
Yeah. That's what, I remember I said we went to that Crescent Park. That's what we did also. We did a tobacco offering at the beginning, and then we did a smudge as well.
And the drum ceremony.
And a drum ceremony.
And that's another thing too, even with the project itself. A lot of things that you don't see on TV. I mean, we did a lot of the ceremonies, we did a lot of the offerings, even before production, and as a group. So we went in protecting ourselves and also just, honoring, respecting not just the communities, but the spirit world itself.
One of the things with TV is they show you maybe 15 minutes of maybe a 2-3 day investigation. Some of our investigations have been going on for years, and they continue to go on. We've made really positive ground with our clients, and we stay in touch all the time. They have activity kicking up again, and we'll go back. We'll do whatever we need to do to fit their needs. And like I say, what you see on TV is probably 15 minutes of the best moments, I guess you would class it as, for camera.
Exactly. But another thing too, people have to keep in mind, they have to watch the whole season of The Other Side, because something really amazing happens and it unfolds in each episode. And once you finish watching the last one, you'll realize how something is tied in, a story is tied in with the entire season. So it's pretty exciting. And I can't tell you more, but honestly, it's pretty exciting.
Does it actually explain more about you guys as well? Because it was kind of brief on the first episode that they didn't really explain who you were and where you came from and how you got involved and that kind of stuff.
And what nations you're from.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of get... Sorry, I'll just...
Yeah, no problem. We've had that before.
My mom phoned on our last interview.
Okay, with that being said, let's quickly move to a commercial break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
I am living on Channel Z!
You're listening to Z Talk Radio Network.
I am living on Channel Z!
Are you interested in what's hiding in your closet? Creeping under your bed? To the answer to all these questions, check out the Spectral Times, your free monthly guide to everything ghostly in the UK and beyond. Only at greatbritishghosts.com. That's greatbritishghosts.com. Sponsored by Canadian X Talk Radio on the Z Talk Radio Network.
As proud members of our tribe, we hold many things sacred, and nothing is more important than our kids. But when we smoke around them, we put them at risk. Secondhand smoke causes low birth weight babies, sudden infant death syndrome, chronic ear infections, coronary heart disease, pneumonia, bronchitis, emphysema, asthma, and other respiratory diseases. For our kids to join in the dance, we have to hold them sacred. When you smoke, don't do it around them.
If this station isn't your cup of coffee, then drink tea. Tea. Drink tea. Drink tea. Drink tea.
Oh, yeah! Now we're talking!
100% news. 100% information. 100% guaranteed.
Loving this.
Thought you might say that.
You're listening to Z-Talk Radio Network.
Okay, welcome back to Canadian X Talk Radio. Myself, Glen Ferguson, and my wife, Janessa, chatting with Priscilla Wolf from APTN's paranormal show, The Other Side.
Okay, so where were we? Did I interrupt you guys?
We were talking about what were we talking about?
You know, they don't. They haven't really explained.
Oh, right.
Yeah, about you guys.
Our backgrounds and everything. Well, actually, at the WDM location, so the next episode that's actually going to air next week, I explain my background, and I explain to viewers where I come from and my beliefs. And I think here and there, through the episodes, each member does kind of tell a little bit more about themselves. But it just kind of comes out eventually.
So how does that work with you guys? Are you sticking with half-hour episodes, or are you doubling up on your shows like Ghost Hunters?
Well, you know, there's probably at least 3 locations where we had to make it a 2-part because we couldn't tell the story in half an hour. We really do want to have the whole hour.
Yeah.
But I guess it's not our choice. It's the network, and we're hoping and we're pushing for an hour.
Yeah. Well,
the viewers themselves even told us, you know, they would love it to be an hour, just because it just seems so quick.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier about the 2 names on the gravestone. It didn't really explain beyond the point of, you know, okay, we got 2 names and 2 different dates. It didn't actually tell you that there was 2 relatives in the same spot.
Right. And, you know, another thing, too, with these investigations, and these are people that have passed on, it's so hard to tell the whole entire story because they have relatives that are alive right now, and we don't want to be disrespectful to them, and we want to honor their privacy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's just Glen is the historian, like yourself, and he likes to delve into the history, and, you know, for him it's that curiosity of, okay, what's more to this story, and that's where his interests lie. Because
I find that a lot of investigations we do are based on kind of urban legend, where it's been passed on from generation to generation, and the truth hasn't come out; it's just been passed on. And some of the clients we've had have actually believed that urban legend, and I've ended up turning up stuff from research that has been contrary to what they believe.
Wow, well, that's interesting. But, you know, it is really exciting when you actually can put a name and a face to the spirit that you end up contacting on these locations. I do actually think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I actually found out we did a ranch up here in the interior of British Columbia called Hat Creek, where the story went that a child was killed on the ranch by a Chinese cook, and the cook was hung by the ranchman in the barn. I actually found out that the cook lived to the age of 93 and died in Victoria. So it's one of those things where, like, legend's been passed down, and
the child did die. It's just that it had died of
consumption.
Yeah, that was what they would call it then. What was that? Consumption, what is that?
Tuberculosis.
Oh, okay.
So she was confined to a certain area in the building. She died of her disease. She wasn't killed or murdered and buried under the stairs, as the legend
she was put down under the stairs,
yes,
because that's where they had put her until they could find a suitable burial site or something of that nature.
Right, it's not like today where you could call the ambulance and they pick up the body, and you know, they had to keep the body from deteriorating quickly. So they generally found a cold area and packed it with ice until they could get someone to come out and pick up the body.
And was there an actual spirit of the little girl there?
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Okay. And then, I mean, from talking to the guys and, you know, the investigations that we did, it sounds like with something like to die of a disease like that, you have all this negative energy, and you like somewhere like a hospital has that, and I can understand how a spirit can linger in that area because of that, because of the way they died, not necessarily like being killed, but just, you know, from a disease.
We had that again at O'Keefe Ranch, which is in Vernon, and the boy, his name is Faber. he passed away of the same tuberculosis, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he hasn't left either.
Wow.
You know, and because he's one of the ones that likes to play around and make your life interesting when you're in the middle of the night in the dark. We've actually got good shots of him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
Well, we have a website, Post My Ghost. Maybe you should check out our website, the Other Side website, and then we have we give people the opportunity to post pictures of any ghosts that they actually have been able to capture.
So is that postmeghost.com or?
Post My Ghost.
Post My Ghost?
Yes. So if you go to the Other Side website, it has the information on there.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, I just sent the link to your first episode to some of my friends down in the States who actually hadn't really heard about the show.
Yeah, it's hard to get the information down there because we're not actually airing it on a network there at the moment.
yeah, and we're kind of our station is based in the States, and we have a lot of friends and stuff like that. And of course, we have this big convention coming up not next year. It's
this June.
This June, where we have a lot of people coming in. So we've made a lot of contacts down there.
Yeah, we have a lot of guests coming in from reality TV, like Brian.
What kind of convention is it? It sounds interesting.
It's Western Canada Paracon, which is Paranormal Convention, and Spiritual Expo 2014.
Neat.
It includes First Nations culture as well as spirituality and the paranormal field.
And ufology and cryptozoology and druidism and...
I'll have to send you a link.
Yeah, send me the link. So this is all completely new to me.
Yes.
But it's very interesting.
Yeah, so we're actually trying to incorporate everything spiritual, and that leads, as one of our friends says, all roads lead to the paranormal in a lot of ways. And we're just trying to incorporate it all. So we have the likes of Brian J. Cano, who's our headliner from Haunted Collector, and the Bomba Boys from Deep South Paranormal coming up, and Keith Age from Spook TV.
And Scott Tepperman from Ghost Hunters International.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, I don't watch the shows.
That's one of those things. Generally, when you're involved in it, you tend not to watch it unless it's something new. Hence the reason I watched your show, and I thought it was kind of interesting with the First Nations aspect.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's when you're putting on a convention, you start opening up some extra doors that say you haven't done up to that point.
Uh-huh.
I guess it's saying you have to broaden your horizons.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you probably have a lot of people that attend your event, because the thing that I found that's really interesting is the paranormal interests everybody around the world, because death happens everywhere, in every culture.
And every culture treats it differently, and so some are very taboo, and others embrace it, and that's for me, I think embracing it is probably the ideal.
Right. Well, even with the Bekovar investigation that we did, the community itself is Hungarian, and when I was speaking to them, they didn't want to talk about spirits, they didn't want to talk about ghosts because it was considered satanic to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Filipino community is quite like that as well.
Yeah, so everybody does treat it different, you're right.
Yeah, and one of the things is, I grew up in a small town, and we had First Nations people all around us, and so I guess it wasn't as taboo when I grew up. You know what I mean? Right.
Well, I can understand that too, because growing up myself, I wouldn't say that I've ever encountered a spirit or ghost, like physically, and to see it with my own eyes, but just being First Nation and respecting the spirit world, it's pretty common that if a door were to fly open, or if there's a loud bang or something, we hear something, we basically just said, okay, well, somebody's visiting us, or, that's just a spirit. And then we go back to doing what we were doing.
Yeah. See, Glen grew up in a household where, he grew up in a spiritualist church. His mom was a psychic medium. His gran was a psychic medium. So for him, it was kind of the norm, actually.
That makes sense, and that's probably one of the reasons why I was so open to this project. My mother is very spiritual as well as very open to, and sounds similar to the lady that you just described.
Yeah, and it's just I wasn't it wasn't the norm for me, but I just grew up understanding that there's more out there, and it wasn't ever a taboo for me.
And that's how I felt too. But another reason that I got interested to do this project was because I also wanted to make sure that even though I knew that the spirit world existed and I knew what they were going to do with this project, I wanted to be there because I also wanted to make sure that they were respectful. I mean, I definitely say that they were respectful. And I don't know. I mean, if somebody else was the researcher, they had another female host, I don't know if the project would have ended up the same way.
Yeah, you're right. You want to have, you have to certain. I mean, one of the things we've learned is you have to go in and show respect, and if you don't, it really, I don't know. It just goes against our principles.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of TV shows where guys go in there, they're yelling and screaming and cursing, and say, you know what? If I was even just a regular human being, like you walk in there and someone's yelling at you and screaming at you, you'd turn around and walk away. So what kind
exactly.
of... Yeah.
Well, you know what? I love the guys, but on occasion, I did have to get a little upset with them about provoking because of the element of just being respectful.
Yeah.
And it did happen, and they did get the result that I expected.
Yeah,
I like that.
Total ignorance, walk away. They're not going to talk to you. You've been an ass. So we're out of here.
Yep.
And then Tom comes in and helps fix the situation because he comes from a place of respect as well.
But there you go. That makes a big difference.
So that was another role of Tom, kind of cleaning things up if we made a little mess.
I can see it too. You can see that air of just. Because we just watched the pilot, and you can see the air of calmness, the air of knowledge, and it just vibrates from him.
Right, and like I said, there could have been different people they could have had a different elder, they could have had a different researcher, and things would have ended. Like the whole project itself would have been completely different. And I think it's great that the four of us were able to come together, and then just the way that we interact with each other and the way we challenge each other, it just worked out great. Because we do challenge each other.
Well, that's good.
It's actually nice to offset. Like, we have a team of 8 people. We've never really gone beyond 10 people in our team. And people come and go. They expect certain things. They expect everything to happen in 15 minutes, and sometimes investigations, nothing happens. So it depends on how people perceive the field in itself. Like, I've been here a long time now. This is pretty much close to 26 years for me now. But it doesn't always happen. Like, you can go to investigations and nothing at all happens. And regardless of provoking or anything, other elements you may want to add into it, if they want to talk to you, they'll talk to you. And it may happen today, but it may not happen tomorrow. So you can't predict.
Right, and that's why I was very surprised that each location something happened with us. We were only there for less than a week, 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, it's tough when you're just in there for a short period of time. You didn't get a chance to actually sit down and, well, you probably did get a chance to sit down and talk to the local community at some point and find out.
Yes, because they're very curious about people with a lot of cameras coming into their community, regardless.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on here? How come there's a big camera crew here?
Exactly.
Curiosity kills the cat, right?
There you go.
There you go.
But it's amazing when you get involved in that kind of situation that everyone has a story to tell. And a lot of it's based on fact, and a lot of it's kind of, like I say, urban legend in some cases. But it's nice to have the community itself, or the neighborhood, if you're in just a local neighborhood, give some input to the project that you're working on.
Exactly. And, I found every location that we went to, we had a great relationship with the people that were there. If it was a home or it was an establishment or, even the WDM,
yeah.
we all became really good friends. You bond with these people.
Well, it's that old adage, if you go into a location and you show respect, you listen, it's going to come back to the same way. You know,
Exactly.
yeah, it's just, you know, they want to be heard. They want to tell their story, and you show them some respect, and you don't slough them off or whatever and make them look like they're stupid. And, you know, that's what it's all about. They want to tell their story and be heard.
Yes, and I think they love the idea of just someone coming in there with respect and who believes them. Because there are people out there who don't believe their stories about things flying around in their living room.
Well, you know, they wouldn't say it because it would make them look stupid if it wasn't true 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
You know, you know, the last thing you want to do is be laughed at. So you don't go out and say, "Oh, I saw this flying around my living room," and everybody kind of looks at you like you've grown 2 horns on the top of your head, right? So, you know, if they're telling you that story, more than likely it's probably happened at some point in that time.
Right, and you know, we do a lot of pre-interviews as we find it. We get to know each person that we, when we go into a home or into an establishment.
Yeah.
So we kind of like make sure that, you know, these are legitimate people with, I guess, that are not making the stories up. Is the best way to put it.
Well, you'd have to. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you go in there and you just you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to look like the fool.
Right, and I think the viewers of our show too will see that they can actually they can get to know the people that we actually interview a little bit and see, you know, where they're coming from, and I think that in itself they'll be able to understand that, you know, these people are not making up these stories.
Yeah.
And that's why we're there.
That's why you're there. So anyway, I guess we're almost at the point of saying if the interview went well and over and all that kind of stuff.
What is she talking about?
What is she talking about?
I gotta watch what she says. She's a rookie on the radio.
Yeah, what can I say? I don't do this every day.
So Priscilla, if anyone wants to check you guys out, I guess they go to aptn.ca/the other side.
That's one way, yes, and also we do have the other side, Post My Ghost app and website.
Perfect. Well, thanks for coming on tonight, Priscilla. And good luck with your future investigations. Looking forward to seeing more shows.
You're welcome, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you for talking with us, and it was enjoyable, and one day hopefully we'll be able to meet.
Okay, so we're quickly going to go to commercial break right now. Thanks to Priscilla Wolf from APTN coming on board to chat with us tonight. After the break, we'll be speaking to Chris Rutkowski, ufologist and author.
The competition has taken notice.
Oh my God.
Good luck keeping up with us.
You're listening to Z-Talk Radio Network.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius.
Real men of genius.
Today we salute you, Mr. In the Car Nose Picker.
Mr. In the Car Nose Picker.
For you, the daily commute isn't simply a drive to the office. It's a hands-on exploration deep into your schnoz.
I'm going in now.
With pinpoint accuracy and sheer determination, you dig for boogers like miners dig for gold.
Hit the jackpot.
And why do you do it? 'Cause the windows are up and you think we can't see you. We can.
How you doing?
So crack open an ice cold Bud Light, oh nabber of the nose nugget. We'd like to shake your hand, but you'll have to wash it first.
Mr. In the Car Nose Picker.
Bud Light Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
On the go and missing another one of your favorite Z-Talk shows? Now you don't have to. Simply go to the Google Play Store on your Android phone and download the Z-Talk Radio app. The best part is, it's absolutely free. That's Z-Talk Radio, only found in your Google Play Store on your Android phone. Download it today.
Okay, welcome back to Canadian X-Talk Radio. Our next guest, Chris Rutkowski, an astronomer. Chris has been studying reports of UFOs or PFTs pesky flying things, as he sometimes likes to call them, since the mid-1970s. A writer and editor for science and technology publications, he also writes about his investigations and research into UFO cases. Are you there, Chris?
I certainly am.
So what's new in the UFO field?
Things are looking up.
Yeah.
I had to do that. I'm really sorry.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
How far up? I remember that from the Friendly Giant, right?
Well, I mean, there's it's very interesting in both terms of space science and astronomy. We're only about 8 or 9 months away from a space probe reaching Pluto for the first time. We've got a very interesting view of Pluto coming up in only a matter of a couple of months, less than a couple of months, month and a half, I guess. The new Cosmos TV series starring Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to air. Tyson is sort of updating the original Carl Sagan Cosmos TV series, which was so well done and got so many people hooked on astronomy. Sagan, of course, was a staunch disbeliever in UFOs and everything. He did actually talk about UFOs in one episode of the Cosmos series, but because he didn't believe in it and thought it all was nonsense, pretty well everything he said was incorrect. In fact, his recreations of some of the classic UFO cases were wrong, and gave people a very skewed view of some of the cases. At the same time, speaking of TV shows, there's a new Discovery Channel TV series called Close Encounters that I am part of. I was filmed for a number of episodes. It's Friday nights on Discovery Channel in Canada, and they do 2 half-hour shows every evening. It's sort of rebroadcast throughout the week, and it recreates some of the more interesting cases, and many of which that I've been involved with in terms of investigation and speaking with researchers. So I figure fairly prominently in that. So there's a lot of interesting things in terms of media. There's a lot of interesting things in terms of cases. And right now, we are currently working on the Canadian UFO Survey for 2013, which involves reading through all the UFO reports filed in Canada in 2013, and then coding them and entering them into a database, and then eventually we'll get to the point of running the statistics on it and find out exactly how 2013 was in terms of the numbers of UFO reports, whether there were more in BC than in Ontario, for example, where the local hotspots were, what colors were predominant, all that sort of thing. So it's actually quite a busy time, and it's tiring.
What kind of volumes are you looking at as far as claims of UFO reports in Canada?
Pardon me?
What kind of volumes are you looking at for claims of activity in Canada?
Well, 2012, which is the last year's that we have on record, we did the stats for, there were more than 2,000 UFO reports filed in Canada.
Oh, really?
And that was a record, an all-time record. Now, I'm not sure whether we'll be reaching that all-time record for 2013. There's some indication that we're going to be a little bit down. But that doesn't mean the UFOs have gone away. Just these things come in waves, and there's some fluctuations depending on how many people are reporting through certain areas, whether there's some major events. There's actually a few technical issues involved where some online UFO reporting sites disappeared over the past year, so we're going to be losing them in terms of numbers of reports. So I suspect that we're going to be probably in the neighborhood of, maybe 1,500 as opposed to 2,000. But nevertheless, when you think about it, that's still a lot of UFO reports in Canada in 1 year.
How does that compare with claims across the United States in general and worldwide?
Well, it's interesting that what we do here in Canada is not matched anywhere in the world. Now, in terms of numbers, the numbers are actually, I would say, similar per capita as elsewhere in the world, but the statistical analysis that we do is not done anywhere else. In the United States, we're probably looking at about maybe, perhaps 10 times the number of UFO reports as in Canada, but that is completely analogous to the population.
Yeah.
Whereas Canada is running around, let's say, 30 million, the United States is around 300 million. So there's 10 times as many people to see UFOs and 10 times, the number of possible witnesses. So that's not surprising. There's many more UFO investigators in the United States than are in Canada. There's a major UFO group called MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, which has representatives in, I think, all states across the United States, and teams of investigators and so forth, many groups that are holding meetings. I know just close to me here in Manitoba, I know there's a MUFON North Dakota and a MUFON Minnesota, and they all get together and meet and fan out and do their investigation. So there's like that throughout all of the United States. So there's a lot more people doing some work, whereas here in Canada, we're hindered in some ways by the large size of our country. So there's really just me and a few assistants here in Manitoba. There's currently nobody investigating in Saskatchewan. I don't think there's anybody currently investigating in Alberta either. There used to be Jim Maroney, who was out of Edmonton, doing work, but his website has disappeared, so I'm not sure what happened to Jim over there. And in BC, even though there's a group called UFO BC, which does excellent work, they're affiliated with MUFON in some ways as well. There used to be a fellow named Brian Vike who was doing some work collecting UFO reports online, but he retired. So there's pockets here and there, and there's people in a few provinces, but certainly not as a volumes that there are across the United States. So we're the numbers are down, or sorry, not down, but lower than the United States. But I think in terms of capita, we're right up there.
Is there any collaboration between your research society and groups within the U.S.?
Well, we do, yes. As a matter of fact, I'm constantly in touch with organizations like the Center for UFO Studies, the Journal of Scientific Exploration, and MUFON. And at a high level, there is some really good work that's being done in consultation with everybody. You stay in touch with Stanton Friedman, who people have probably recognized from appearances on CNN and so forth. Plus online, the online UFO community has really gone through some changes recently. There used to be UFO updates run by Earl Bruce Knapp in Ontario. He retired, and his site went down. It used to be a really good forum for researchers to talk about some current issues and theories and so forth. That was recently reinvented by Isaac Coy, who started a number of online forums in Google+, and Updates itself has been created as a group within Facebook. So, it's very interesting dynamic changes of the way that ufology is changing. And I would suspect in parallel to other paranormal phenomena, ghost research, poltergeist research, hauntings, that type of thing, that it's really quite interesting with all the TV shows, with groups coming and going, localized groups. And of course, the internet is making it so easy for people to communicate and share ideas that it really is quite a dynamic time for paranormal phenomena.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. My last guest just before the break there was Priscilla Wolf from a new show, The Other Side. The Other Side. This is based in the prairies, which is kind of interesting. You have a Canadian group out there running a TV show.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting, and of course, in terms of TV, I mentioned the Cosmos TV show, which is ready to start up, the Discovery Canada show Close Encounters, which is on right now. I think there's another one too that's on either History or Discovery United States, which people are watching right now too. There was another TV show I was involved with last year, which aired in the fall, called Indians and Aliens. It was produced by the Aboriginal People's Television Network, and it focused on paranormal phenomena, not just UFOs, but unusual phenomena occurring up in James Bay, which is very close, actually very close to the Hudson Bay itself, right along the shoreline, where unusual phenomena have been reported for many years by First Nations people, some of the people living in the small communities out there, not just the average person on the street, but in some cases chiefs of some of the bands, some researchers, some people well respected in the community, politicians. It was a very interesting program, and there were 6 episodes of that. And it's interesting that if you go to the website, you'll find that there has been a video game which has been produced online based on the television show. So, not only do we have the UFOs in TV shows, but they're spinning off into video games. So I suspect that, your show probably could spin off into a video game quite easily if you really set your mind to it, Glenn. Come on, get with it.
Yeah, probably. Chris, you have, was it $5 out now or 6? I'm not quite sure.
9, but who's counting?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have quite a few, well, not quite a few, but a number of books that are out. I think 5 or 6 are currently in print. And my most recent one is The Big Book of UFOs, which is quite big. It's an inch and a half thick for who, if anybody's really interested in something weighty, but it really covers the waterfront of UFO phenomena, the history, some classic cases, and I go into some of the ideas that people have developed surrounding it.
Now, you started off writing, I think it was Visitations was your first book back in 1989, I believe.
Yes, going back pretty far. I actually published that one myself, just to see if there was any interest in the subject, and it sold out very, very quickly. I was quite surprised. And not long after, I was approached by a small publishing house to produce a book on UFOs in Manitoba, and that turned into Unnatural History. And it wasn't just UFOs. Yeah, it was all types of paranormal phenomena.
That was back in 1993, right?
Yeah, in the early 90s. And I at that time, I was really fascinated by all types of Fortean phenomena. That's the name we give to all kinds of paranormal phenomena. So I was investigating ghosts and hauntings, Sasquatch reports, lake monster reports, and UFOs. And it was quite interesting. It gave a different perspective on what was going on in the province of Manitoba, hence the title Unnatural History. And books like that can be done, I'm fairly sure, about any province. It's just a matter of somebody collecting all the information. Of course, there's usually too much information to include. In fact, so much information, so many interesting cases and phenomena in all those areas have occurred since that time. I could probably do another book and possibly a third just on the cases and interesting theories and ideas that have been produced since that time, just for Manitoba alone. So, and I think there is an interest in this still from the public, the fact that we're talking about television shows and blogs and so forth, and whether the book is published in paper format, but or these days people are interested in Kindles and EPUBs and Mobies and things like that. I think that the people have a desire to find out more and more about these types of phenomena. So I think that the field will continue to flourish for many, many years to come.
Yeah, I've noticed that you did a couple of co-authored books with Dave Crichton and Brian Fiddler in 1997. Was that Mysterious Manitoba, I believe?
Yeah, I've been doing most of this myself all these years, but from time to time, people have sought me out saying, "Hey, I'd like to help. You need somebody to investigate." And I've taken a few people under my wing, and 2 were Brian Fiddler and Creighton, and they helped me investigate. They were actually based in Brandon, so that it was nice to have somebody off in another part of Manitoba that I didn't have to travel. They were, they're really keen, but of course, things are not always as they seem on television. And they quickly found out that not all the reports of UFOs they were getting turned out to be alien spaceships and landings and things easily identifiable and that type of thing. No creatures jumping out from craft. It was really just lights in the sky, and after some investigation, they turned out to be stars and planets and planes and so forth. And the vast number of reports of UFOs do turn out to have really ordinary explanation.
Yeah, you actually worked with Jeff Dippin as well. I think that was on the Canadian UFO report. Are you still working with Jeff right now? Chris, you there? Oh, I think we just lost Chris. I'm sure we'll have him back in a few seconds, but we're talking with Chris Rutkowski, ufologist and author from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Chris, you there? Chris?
He's
Yes.
redoing.
Oh, there he is.
Did you lose me there?
Yeah, you disappeared for about 30 seconds.
I can't hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, I got you. I've got a bit of an echo going on in the background there.
Well, I hear the other computer going off.
Oh, do you want to go turn that off for me? Thank you very much, dear. Sorry about that. Someone's trying to call me on the other line. We'll make sure that it doesn't interfere with what we're talking about. Yeah, I was discussing you work with Jeff Dippin as well on the Canadian UFO report. Are you still working with Jeff?
Yes, I started in the late 1980s. One of the big questions I had was how many UFO reports are there in Canada after all? I've been working with a few individuals across Canada, and I'd seen some published newsletters and had corresponded with them by mail and snail mail at that time and on the phone. But we couldn't really get a handle on how many cases there were really. So I entered into a sort of an agreement with people who were actually doing the investigations in places across Canada to try and gather as many reports as possible and to find out what are what's really going on across Canada. Do we have a lot of cases? Are they all concentrated in one area? Are there flap areas or really major concentrations here and there? We didn't really seem to have any idea of that because we didn't have all the information coordinated. So with the cooperation of some individuals, we began collecting the cases from across Canada. We had the first meeting of the Canadian UFO Survey panel, I suppose, is what you could call it, in 1989 here in Winnipeg, where there's about a dozen of us who got together and sorted through every single UFO report that had been received in Canada. At that time, we weren't talking 2,000, we were only talking about 150 to 200 or so it wasn't quite as onerous as all that. But still, it took some time, and we discussed which ones were the really good ones, which might have explanations and so forth. And it published our first Canadian UFO survey in 1989, and Jeff was on board to help out doing the statistics. And since 1989, we've been doing it every year. Some groups have come and gone, researchers have come and gone, and here it is now in 2014, and it's basically myself and Jeff Dittman doing the number crunching. I do receive reports from a few people who are doing investigations across Canada. But for the most part, it's just a matter of going web surfing and mining the web for some interesting cases, trying to figure out where the reports are. And it's quite a challenge sometimes. There's so many places to report UFOs online, but people report things directly to us via email, on Facebook, on Twitter, YouTube, you name it. People are reporting UFOs in very big numbers, and it's up to us to try and sort through them all.
So would you say BC is quite well known for UFO reportings?
Yeah, BC is always one of the highest. The number of UFO reports per province is related to the population. So BC and Ontario have the lion's share of cases in Canada, naturally. It's the old tree falling in the forest.
Yeah.
And, the more people that are available to be witnesses, the more UFO reports you'll get.
Yeah.
And And, Quebec is up there too, but it is related to population.
Yeah, considering most of our population is centered around the border with the U.S.
Exactly. Yeah, we do get reports from further north, Kamloops and Prince George. We do get reports out that way, for example, Kelowna, Penticton, all the way through the Okanagan and into the far interior. But it is concentrated around Vancouver, Burnaby, White Rock, Surrey. A lot of reports from Surrey. Of course, it's not too surprising because there's something called the Surrey Corridor with the valley coming straight down from the east, heading for Vancouver, which of course is also a flight path. So,
yeah.
A lot of the reports are certainly going to turn out to be planes flying through the area, and then some will be passing over mountains, and in the dark it'll look like the light suddenly disappears, but when in fact it's actually just passed behind a mountain crag or something like that. So, these types of things we have to take into account. But there are reports from time to time that say we simply don't understand what could have caused them. We can't explain. We haven't gone through the 2013 reports in detail yet. As I say, we're still in the process of entering them, so I can't tell you a number of cases from 2013, but there have been some classic cases over the years from BC, but from right across Canada, from each province and territory, west to east, north to south, and right across the United States. There's online reporting of many, many cases every year. MUFON, I think, reports 50,000 cases every year from one end of the country to the other. So there are a lot of cases out there. And one interesting statistic we can talk about is that every UFO report has about 2 witnesses.
Yeah.
So if you're talking in Canada with 2,000 UFO reports each year, that's 4,000 people in Canada every year believe they've seen UFOs, not including Rob Ford. So that's a different factor entirely. Yeah. But that's a lot of people.
So would you say intensity with claims have increased over the last 10 years, probably with the advancement of technology, cameras, equipment, and that kind of stuff?
I think with the availability of being able to report the UFOs easier. It's as simple as logging on to a website and typing in your report. You can do it. Many people are doing it anonymously, which is a problem because we are unable to follow up, unable to check back with the person and ask a few more questions. Was it really in the West and not in the East, and that type of thing. Yeah,
you just need to go on YouTube and you'll see a million different videos of claims of activity, and it's the same with the paranormal field as well, with paranormal investigating as far as ghost hunting, Bigfoot sightings, etc., etc. You just have to go on YouTube.
Absolutely. Yeah, and of course, videos and photos. I was looking at the list just today, and I would guess that about a third of all reports, maybe a quarter to a third of all reports have videos or photographs. And that's pretty significant. It's one of the claims by skeptics that there's nothing to UFOs and the UFO phenomenon, because, with everybody having cell phone cameras now and security cameras and all that sort of thing, surely by now we would have got a good, nice video of them. And the problem is the quality of cell phone videos and photos and security cameras too is so lousy that pretty well every video and photo that's ever been produced of a UFO reported in Canada over the past little while is almost useless because the imaging systems are not sharp enough. But what we'll get is a big black sky with a little tiny dot of light in it, and that tells us absolutely nothing. The person was saying, but it was jumping around and it was moving quickly and it zoomed, and I just caught it as it was dashing out of sight. Well, that's not what's on film or on video, and that's a problem. So yes, we are getting many more videos and photos, but they're pretty well useless.
Well, it's the same with video editing. Like I get a lot of photographs sent to me or clips of video, saying, do you see a ghost in this video? But with the advancement of editing techniques now, Photoshop, etc., it's quite easy to fake a lot of the stuff that comes through my door.
Yeah, and certainly there's I don't know whether that's a big difference between ghost photos and UFO photos. In ufology, we don't find a lot of fake UFO photos anymore. There still are some, and people are still throwing some on YouTube of flying saucers that look like spaceships flying over the hillsides and whatnot. And these days, it's very easy to fake that type of thing. But by and large, the majority of the photos we get and the videos we get are images that people have captured of things they saw in the sky and just simply want an explanation. Can we, come up with a reason why this thing was in the sky? They're not trying to pull the wool over our eyes or anything. They just want to know what it was that they saw. I actually have an app that I got for my iPhone. I'd heard about it from somebody else, and what it does, it puts a UFO into any photograph you take. You get to select whether it's a flying saucer, a globe of light, whether there's aliens and so forth, and you take a photo of you and your family at the beach, and you can throw a UFO into the sky and save it and submit it. So, but the trouble is, those are very easy to detect. Some of the more sophisticated techniques aren't available as apps, obviously, but those things do exist, and yet I would say that's a very, very small fraction of the cases that we get.
On your UFO reports, do you get any claims of alien abduction?
Yeah, one of my books, Abductions and Aliens, addressed this specifically. I used to get a lot more. I won't say that the fad is disappearing, but we're getting fewer and fewer being reported officially, simply because it seems to be more of it's a contactee trend that we're seeing now, that people are claiming to have received special treatment and favoritism, and the aliens have imparted great knowledge to them. It's very hard to sort of shoehorn that into a UFO report, like time of day, location, is this flying saucer, silver or black or blue or so forth. Because a lot of the contacts that people are having and claiming, they could occur throughout their lifetimes. They might think that they're in a dream state during sleep. They may be imparting knowledge while in dreams. The assumption is that aliens can do anything, so why couldn't they possibly do that as well?
Yeah.
There's an analogous types of phenomena that blend into the paranormal too. People receiving messages from the spirit world, for example, or there's been some theories bopping around that aliens themselves come from the spirit world. That they can travel between the dimensions and planes and things like that very easily. It's all wonderful to speculate that like that, but some people want to talk about flying saucers traveling here from distant planets, and don't really want to talk about spiritual aliens and UFOs. But it's part of the phenomena, and that's why I continue to study them. I guess every year I get a few people coming to me with, earnestly seeking help because they believe that they've been abducted. In the 90s and early 2000s, I had been working with a clinical psychologist who was very experienced in hypnosis and had worked with police on some cases in terms of regression. And I guess we did maybe a couple of dozen cases working with this individual. And it was very interesting. A lot of the phenomena I can't explain. There were some people who were clearly having abductions as screen memories of traumatic events in their lives, that had nothing to do with aliens.
Yeah.
Some people were looking for attention. Some people were, I suppose, deluded. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can use that term, I think, safely as a layperson. But there were a number of interesting individuals who came to me without any psychopathology that were very earnest, were not seeking fame and fortune, were not obviously trying to just lie to me to get my goat. And they had some very interesting experiences. Whether they were real or not, I don't know. But I think there is something to the abduction phenomenon, but I think it needs more study, just as I believe that the entire UFO phenomenon needs further study. And it would be nice if science took the entire spectrum of UFO phenomena a little more seriously. And we share that opinion with the paranormal with you guys. It'd be nice if science took the paranormal a little more seriously too. But the way that it's being sensationalized with UFO hunters on TV and ghost hunting on TV and there's been some criticism of some groups, mostly in the United States, I think, who are in it for the money, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're causing more harm than good, and they're making the phenomena look pretty bad, the field look pretty bad. It's like that everywhere, and it's tough to get scientists interested in a real phenomenon when what they see on television is a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, actually, for those who are tuning in right now and you don't know Chris, as well as being a ufologist and author, he also has interests in other parts of the paranormal too, as well as Sasquatch and ghost hunting. What have you experienced on the other levels of the paranormal, Chris?
Well, I did a lot of investigation into buildings and homes in the Manitoba area. Manitoba has a rich history. There's an old stone fort called Lower Fort Garry, which has a long history. Many people have reported seeing apparitions and entities in there. With you, we've conducted some investigations into the Marlborough Hotel, for example, which is available on YouTube. I'm sure you'll share the link anytime now.
Oh, yes.
And but I've investigated the Lower Fort Garry, a lot of locales, and studied poltergeist cases. And again, I was doing a lot of it on my own. This goes back before there were, it was a little popular. So I found myself, in the course of a single weekend, I could be investigating a Sasquatch report on a Friday night, traveling to see where a lake monster was reported on a Saturday afternoon, a ghost investigation Saturday night, and talking about UFOs with somebody who had witnessed it on a Sunday night or evening. So, it was very hectic, and I've pulled back for the most part, from other areas of the paranormal, simply because there's just too much, and that's why I've been concentrating on UFOs. But there is so much overlap between all the phenomena that it's hard to really distance yourself from one aspect. I mean, is a spook light, which is a type of UFO related to spooks. I mean, they're often seen around cemeteries. They're sometimes affiliated with shamanistic practices, curses and hexes that have been placed on particular regions by people who are practicing that type of thing. And yet there are lights bobbing up and down in the sky, sometimes moving towards people, sometimes not. Are those UFOs? Are they other manifestations? Are they natural phenomena? There's so much overlap. It really does require a lot of intense research and a lot of expertise in a lot of different fields. So while I'm not actively investigating ghosts and poltergeists and hauntings as much anymore, I still do advise and help out as the time permits, because I think it's very interesting, and there are so many parallels between all the phenomena, and the same methodology can be used. Some of the same techniques, the same instrumentation, the same approach. I think it's all very much relatable to one another.
Mm-hmm. like both me and you got to speak at the Marlborough Hotel, which we mentioned earlier there, back in June last year. The Marlborough Hotel, amazing history. History's my thing, as you know. And I got you to actually do my interview for me, which was kind of neat. So I got to do the videotape, and you got to stand in front of the camera, which is fun.
Well, you're a good camera person. You're the best techie around. So.
I'm working on it. Anyway, we got the chance to walk around with Grace Rents, who was the events coordinator for the hotel, and we did get to experience a few things ourselves, which were kind of a little bit strange, like the cigar smoke or cigarette smoke up on the top floor. When there was no access to the top floor other than via Grace Rents that day.
Yeah, and for me, it was really interesting to see the grand ballroom way up on the upper floors, and to hear some of the discussions of or Grace's comments about a policeman who was freaked out by the elevator that was disconnected and couldn't possibly stop at that floor, and yet it did. Things like that. So it was a very interesting time, and it just shows you that there are more and more stories to be had, and that's why the field continues to blossom.
And we also got a chance to go down to the press club. I know you were just loving that, because the history in that area was just crazy, along with having Sir Arthur Conan Doyle actually perform a seance in that room.
Yeah, Doyle was in Winnipeg speaking with Thomas Glen Hamilton, because Hamilton had conducted a number of spiritualist experiments trying to contact the other side. His photographs are quite famous, reproduced in many books. The papers and the photographs are collected here in Manitoba. And Arthur Conan Doyle was convinced that the apparitions that Hamilton was detecting were real, and in order to explore that a little bit more, this seance apparently did occur in the basement of the Marlborough Hotel, in what became the press club. So, there's such a rich history and so much going on. It's interesting to participate in these types of things, and that's what keeps us going, right?
That's right. The research and the history is what keeps me going. But I believe Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was actually in town when he was staying at the Marlborough to do poetic readings at the theatre just down the road from there. He's obviously not as well known for his poetry, other than his writings with Sherlock Holmes. But it's kind of interesting that the two things kind of factor into each other.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're actually speaking at two conventions this year in Canada. One of them is ours, the Western Canada Paranormal Spiritual Expo, June 7th and 8th at the Sheraton Guildford Hotel in Surrey, British Columbia. And you're also speaking at Winnipeg again with me in September 12th and 13th with Winnipeg Paracon.
Yes, and actually I've just been booked for an abduction UFO conference in Edmonton at the end of September. So it's going to be another busy year.
What are your thoughts on actually speaking in public, Riff? It's what we do. I wasn't quite sure myself how I would handle it from my first year, last year in Winnipeg. That was my first speaking engagement, and a little unsure of myself, surrounded by a whole bunch of big names that I had no idea about, and it ended up becoming really good friends with those guys.
I think that's the key. I think, one good way to get over the anxiety and the intimidation is to get into a relationship with the audience, and you can do that easily if the audience is small, or if you happen to speak with some of them beforehand, and you end up being, friends with some of them, and it's really just, it's just an extension of sitting around a kitchen table talking with a friend or two. Talking to a larger group is the same way. It just enter into conversation, and it's a good way to exchange information and to carry the communication towards helping people understand what you're talking about, what the phenomenon is really all about.
Well, having you talk and working with Glen was just it just really reassured him, especially being his first time, because you've done it a lot before, and he found you easy to learn off of, I guess was the word.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear. And I thought Glen did fine. In fact, wouldn't have known that he hadn't done it before. So that's hats off to you, Glen, for that.
Thank you.
Well, he prefers to be behind the camera, can't you tell?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I enjoy working both sides of the camera myself. I tend to do a lot of TV and things like that, but I enjoy doing some videos myself and interviewing other people. So it's interesting to participate in both sides because it gives you different perspectives.
So are you looking forward to coming out to Vancouver at all?
Well, of course I am. Look at the people I get to see.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the reception for the Vancouver Paracon is like. This is an experiment that you're conducting, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes over. I understand that parts of it are already sold out or something like that.
Well, we're working on it. We're working on it. There's there's tickets sold, and there's some vendor tables sold, and everything's slowly coming together.
It's one of those things. It's a learning curve for us. It's our first year actually putting on a convention here anywhere, and we kind of looked at what happened last year with Sharon and Fonz and how they dealt with their problems, and we're learning from them. So
from Keith Ages.
And Keith Ages helped us a lot. We went down to Mid-South Paracon in Kentucky. Met a whole bunch of people down there who ended up at my convention this year, so which is kind of neat.
That's right. And there's going to be so many interesting ideas exchanged. You have quite a few speakers. There's really something for everybody. For people who are coming out and want to listen to me, I mean, I'm going to be talking about UFOs, but I'll be talking along the lines of what I talked about at the Winnipeg Paracon, and that is the relationship and the similarities between the UFO phenomenon and the psychic phenomena that can manifest in other ways too, and how is the relationship. As I mentioned, between the UFOs and the spook lights is just one example, but the fact that it is part of a larger framework of unusual phenomena that is being studied by researchers like ourselves, it does add a perspective into what our universe is really like, what's really going on. There's something else. I think next week, I'm actually speaking at the New Music Festival in Winnipeg, and composers and performers from across Canada in classical and similar fields are doing some performances. And before the performance on Friday night, I've been invited to speak. This year's theme at this music festival is Beyond. And I've been asked to do a short presentation on what beyond means to me.
Well, that's kind of neat, actually.
And put it into context of music. And I have to tell you, I have no idea what I'm going to say right now.
I have to say this. That's probably the first time I've heard you say that.
What, Chris without words? And
Chris without words, yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't, because there's so much that can be said. Music forms such an interesting, integral part of how we view our world, and it invokes images, and it invokes passion, and it invokes, some feelings, and when you watch a movie, the music itself can drive you to belief and fear and so forth. That's why a lot of the classic horror movies, it's all sound effects and music, It
encapsulates emotions, basically.
Pardon me?
It tries to encapsulate emotions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one has to just look at something like the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So if I went da 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 da, immediately what that refers to and what show that's from, and then E.T., the extraterrestrial, wonderful symphonic score that has a melody that haunts people, that stays with them, and you can point to movies about ghosts. And what about the movie itself, Ghost? The classic pottery scene, where the potter's wheel is spinning and the penny sliding under the door and so forth. And a lot of the music that accompanies that makes you believe, makes you understand what the movie is really trying to convey, and ask the question, do you believe? Is this possible? Is there something on the other side? And is it possible to cross over like that?
I think you just found your thought process for your speech on next Friday.
There it is, absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And you heard it first, people.
There you go.
Because you were getting you could hear the passion in your voice about the music. I thought, well, there's your thought process and your speech for next Friday, because you didn't know what to say, and now you just said it.
That's right. Now, of course, I'll never be able to remember that, but...
Well, you can listen to it tomorrow night or Saturday night, and you go, okay, and then you can write it out and PowerPoint it.
Yeah.
Actually, just going back to what you said about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when we did Winnipeg last year, we came back through the States, through North Dakota, South Dakota, and into Wyoming, and we got a chance to swing by Devil's Tower in Wyoming, and the first thing that came to mind when I saw the place was the music from the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And in terms of the paranormal, there's some of the classic paranormal movies that you like. There isn't any real movie score to the
Ghostbusters.
Well, yeah, Ghostbusters.
That's humorous.
That's very rousing.
You go back to The Exorcist, Tubular Bells.
The Exorcist. Oh yeah, the chime music and the bells of Tubular Bells of The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby and all of those.
The Shining.
That invoke such fear. Yeah.
Anyway, Chris, I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping up right now. But thanks once again, as always, for coming on the show. You're always an interesting guy to listen to. And I'll see you in WCPSE.com if you want to find tickets for Western Canada Paracon and Spiritual Expo, or paracon.ca if you want to go to Winnipeg, Manitoba and see Chris there. And that's September 12th and 13th.
And if you're in Edmonton, go up to the conference in Edmonton as well.
What's the dates? What's the dates for Edmonton, Chris?
I think it's September 27th, if I'm not mistaken.
Perfect. Thank you for coming on, Chris.
It's always a pleasure,
Thank you.
Chris.
And we'll see you in June.
We'll see you.
Good night, buddy.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so we're going to go to the last commercial break of the evening before I hand over to Jim, Dr. Dim Fitzsimmons and Dimland Radio. Interesting show coming up. He's hitting the music again. Big thanks to Priscilla Wolf from APTN's new paranormal show, The Other Side. And Chris Rutkowski, talking about ufology and his latest books. Hope to see you next week, same time, same place. Stay tuned.
Hello there, I'm Dr. Nigel Bilkington, Chief of Medicine at General American Hospital. Now, you were in a bad accident, but the good news is you're going to overpay. Pardon, what I meant to say was you're going to be okay. So, I'm sure you'll be overcharged, discharged soon, but you might be poor for a while. Sore for a while.
Planning a trip to the U.S.? Call Pacific Blue Cross and get travel insurance by the name trusted around the world. Phone 1-800-USE-BLUE.
The views expressed and opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Z-Talk Radio, its affiliates, or sponsors.
Far from the city, where the Lorax roams free, is the home of a magical truffle of trees. They grow happy and healthy and thick as you please, just waiting for visits from yous and from me's. Whoa. In a place you will love, with things you'll adorest. It's a magical spot. We call it the forest.
Look, everyone here needs the trees.
And who are you?
What? I'm the Lorax, guardian of the forest. I speak for the trees.
Visit the animals. Come see the plants. From the mighty sequoia to the tiniest ants. Discover its beauty. Take time to relax. See brown barbaloots or even the Lorax.
I feel so alive! I just like hearing you say it.
The forest is there for you to explore. So come once to see it, then come back lots more. Visit discovertheforest.org. This message has been brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in what's hiding in your closet? Creeping under your bed? To the answer to all these questions, check out the Spectral Times, your free monthly guide to everything ghostly in the UK and beyond. Only at greatbritishghosts.com. That's greatbritishghosts.com. Sponsored by Canadian X Talk Radio on the Z Talk Radio Network.
If this station's not your cup of tea,
then drink coffee!
Coffee! Coffee! Coffee!
Coffee!
Coffee!
Coffee!
Drink coffee!
100% news. 100%
Information. 100% guaranteed. Thought you might say that.
You're listening to Z Talk Radio Network.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Ellen.
One night, I was at a bar.
One night, I was at a bar.
I had one too many drinks.
I had one too many drinks.
I got behind the wheel.
I got a cab.
A squirrel ran across the road.
A squirrel ran across the road.
I swerved.
The cab swerved.
I hit a guy.
The cabbie just missed a guy.
I wish I took a cab.
Thank goodness I took a cab.
You have the choice to save a life. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
Do you believe in ghosts? Do you think Bigfoot is real? Do you suspect that your neighbor is really Val Tor, leader of the lizard people of Bendar 3? Well, Dr. Dim doesn't, and he'll tell you why when you tune in to Dimland Radio Saturday nights, 11 Central, midnight Eastern on Z-Talk Radio Network. It's an hour of science promotion, pop culture rants, personal observation, and of course, skepticism. Dr. Dim might even have a guest or two. Join Jim, Dr. Dim Fitzsimmons, Saturday nights, 11 Central, midnight Eastern for Dimland Radio on Z-Talk Radio Network.
Well, that's all we have time for tonight, guys. Make sure to check out Jim, Dr. Dim Fitzsimmons, next on ztalkradio.com.